Okay, guys, I'm going to give you some advice here, a little bit of advice. I'm going to give you some words of wisdom, or as Jack Nicholson would say, words of wisdom. So, so I was an extra in a movie called Secret in Their Eyes with Julia Roberts and Dean Norris from Breaking Bad, and then Chiwetel Ejiofor, right? I think I screwed that up. The guy from 12 Years a Slave. And I was an extra in this film. Now, what got me to do this here was I was watching an interview by Patrick Bergin, the Irish actor who played the baddie husband in Sleeping with the Enemy. And he was talking about, knowing your role, knowing your character, and then going into knowing what you're doing, what the scene is about. I don't know. And I just started thinking about that. And I'm going to kind of transition this to cop watching and auditing. But I started thinking about that, and I don't know, something occurred to me back when I was doing an extra in the film Secret in Their Eyes with Julia Roberts. Now, that was a 2015 movie that actually we filmed our scenes in June of 2014. It was at the Santa Anita racetrack. Picture Santa Anita racetrack in June in Southern California. But I had heard of this film and I thought, this sounds familiar. And I researched it on YouTube, and this was a remake of the 2009 Secret in Their Eyes, which was a European film. And so I said, oh, that's right. So I was looking at the 2009 film, Secret in Their Eyes, and there was a stadium scene in that one as well. I think it was a soccer game, if I recall, or as they call it, football. And it was in the winter time, like around November, December, early January, was when that was supposed to have taken place, the setting for that scene in the 2009 film. And so as I was preparing to be an extra in this movie, we were going to all be at the Santa Anita racetrack, which I'm in the movie. You can, if you get a microscope, when they pan onto the track at Santa Anita in that movie, you can see me way up in like the 5th or 6th row. I'm sitting there looking out, with my suit coat blazer on, and so you can barely see me. You got to pause it and look really close and get a magnifying glass. But I was up in the stands there. So as I went there to be an extra that day in the movie, I knew that kind of the setting of this is it's a cold evening, or a cold day, not an evening, but it was a cold afternoon. The detective goes and he's looking for the bad guy, and it's a cold, wintry, windy day. And so, but we're filming it in June, remember this. So I go there with a blazer on, a long sleeve shirt with a tie, a blazer, suit blazer, and everything. I'm going there. And while we were filming it, this guy was standing there with short sleeve polo shirt. And he was kind of looked over at me. He was staring at me for 30 seconds. And then he goes, some of these people have never acted before. You can tell. He goes we're here at Santa Anita Racetrack in California in June. You're not going to see people in suit coats and ties, and he goes, people are going to be dressed, casually. And so some of these people, they don't know how to, be extras in movies. And I thought about it, and I go, what a fucking dork. Because the setting of this scene, remember, was in the winter time, a blustery winter, windy day. Cop goes down to look for the bad guy at the racetrack, or in the European film, it was a football stadium. And so if you've ever been in Southern California in December, it gets kind of cool. You need a jacket. So that's why I was wearing a suit coat, because I had already looked into the film. I'd already researched it by looking at the 2009 European film and knew that it was a colder day. It was kind of blustery, windy, winter day. You have to dress warmer. So that's why I dressed that way, even though it was in June. So my point is, transcending this to auditing, cop watching, and all of that, and this goes especially to you trolls. Before you try to spout information, before you try to tell people anything, especially if you're confronted by a cop or police or any law enforcement on an audit or in cop watching, remember to research the laws, the traffic codes, the penal codes, and also the way that you should do public service. I'll get back to that in a second. But you should research all of that. You should research all of it. What are the penal codes that cover what I'm doing here? What are the traffic codes if you're cop watching maybe a hit and run accident or a drunk driver? what are the laws, the constitutional laws, California Constitution, what covers me here. Research all of that before you go out there. And as when I said public service, know that when a cop, maybe he's rude to you, you should say, officer, that's not the way you should treat the public. You really should say, sir, and be public service. I'm not your servant. You're my servant. You're a public servant. So research all of that before you start saying stuff. I've had trolls throw stuff at me, and I've been like, you're not right. That's not true. So I don't know. I just thought about that, and I thought I'd throw that out there for whatever it's worth. Before you go on an audit or before you go on a cop watch, research the setting. I'm going to audit a courthouse. Okay, what are the laws governing filming courthouses? What are the laws governing filming on outside? What is the public area access? What is private access? In other words, if if I'm going to walk behind the courthouse, is that law enforcement parking only? Or law enforcement personnel only. You have to study that. There's certain rooms inside the courthouse. Maybe you're allowed to film in the lobby, but there are certain little rooms where cops go to sit and wait for the courtroom to open. That's called the waiting area. Maybe you shouldn't be in there unless you're a law enforcement officer or a lawyer. So research all of that before you even go out. Know all the ins and outs of what you're going to be doing. I'm talking fast because I'm running out of time here. But again, one more time, all the penal codes, all the traffic codes, all the laws, constitutionally, California Constitution, U.S. Constitution, know everything. So when that cop comes up to you and says, you're interfering by filming me, I'm trying to do this over here, you can tell him that Penal Code 148G actually states video recording and photography are not suspicion in and of themselves. There has to be an actual crime that he has to articulate that you've committed. And if you're standing a good distance back, there's no set distance. If he says you have to be 50 feet back, there doesn't say 50 feet. It just says not interfering, obstructing, or delaying. Tell him to go kick rocks. News Now Ukaipa. I don't know, I'm just trying to help.